What's going, guys? Aarava here. Welcome back to the Pitlane podcast, episode number 19 today for the Austrian Grand Prix, and also a bit of a preview of the British one. Obviously, this isn't going out on the Sunday. It's going to go out probably on either a Tuesday or Wednesday. That was because I was away, so we're doing it now. So I apologize for that. I know a lot of you guys have been tweeting me, Tom, and Callum about it, on YouTube as well in the comments. But we're finally here with your host, myself, and Tom. Again, Callum is away on holiday still, so it's just going to be me and Tom. And Tom will be a bit more of a lead for the Austrian Grand Prix review, because the reason it wasn't out on Sunday was I was actually out at the London E-Prix for the Formula E. I got invited out there by an esports company, so I was there the entire weekend, so I completely missed the race and the qualifying live. I've watched back the race now on the highlights, but I completely missed qualifying. So as for qualifying, which was very, very tasty according to my Twitter timeline, I'll let Tom kind of give his thoughts, a little bit of review, because I wasn't there. I saw updates on it. It looked pretty amazing, like one of the best qualifying sessions this year, probably.
Yeah, it was definitely the best qualifying session. Personally speaking, it's a long time since we've had a qualifying session like that. To be fair, it was very good in the dry by itself, let alone when the rain came along and it really sort of threw a spanner into the works. Obviously, just to sort of gloss over it because I can't really, I'm going to say the basic things. Obviously, we saw Verline qualify as high as 12th place, so fantastic qualifying from him. Obviously, there was more debate to go with the yellow baguette curbs. Obviously, Kvyat crashing out, and also Perez had a problem, I believe, in Q1. And it sort of sparked a lot of controversy going into the race. Obviously, because Perez and Sainz, and no, not Sainz, Kvyat, and I think who was the other driver?
Rosberg, wasn't it?
Rosberg,
Well, Rosberg's in
that was
practice.
yeah.
Rosberg was in practice, but there's just a few drivers, weren't there? Just like
Yeah,
broke
in
their
qualifying,
suspension.
there was in Q2. I'm trying to think. In Q2, there was obviously Perez and Sainz who didn't take part, and then there was another driver who I can't think. And basically, that automatically promoted Verlaine up to P13. But then he also put a lap in on the side anyway, and got all up to 12th place. Alonso had problems in qualifying. When the rain started to come down, it was sort of on and off. It was sort of sprinkling in Q2, and McLaren sort of sent Alonso out for a feeler of the track, see what it was like. And then they sort of came back in. Alonso said the track was fine, so they went back out. And by the time they went back out, the track was wet, and they got it all wrong. So Alonso started, I think, P14. Terrible qualifying from McLaren on that end. However, on the other hand, in Q3, Jenson Button, fantastic job. P5 from him, obviously, because of the penalties of Rosberg and Vettel. He got promoted up into P3. So, brilliant. It just felt great to see McLaren back on top again. And we're moving to rivaling in the race. But P3 for Jenson Button on paper. Lewis Hamilton took pole position in dominant fashion. Brilliant qualifying from him. And then Nico Hulkenberg, honourable mention for him, P2, great qualifying once again, similar to Interlagos 2010, where he got on pole in those sort of mixed conditions. And also Ferrari, nowhere in qualifying in the wet conditions, really not take any risks. Vettel and Raikkonen said after qualifying that they just sort of they lacked that cutting edge. They didn't really take any risks to try and get high up the grid. And you can see they started off quite fair down, especially Vettel, who had his grid penalty. But overall, a very interesting qualifying, a couple of interesting results, you could say, and it really is going to set a tone for what was a brilliant race on Sunday.
Yeah, it looked it. Like, I just saw everyone just went crazy over qualifying, like especially Q3. Like, they were just like, because obviously it was all changeable. So obviously I haven't watched it, but I saw it was all changeable. Like, things were like constantly changing it, people going out, maybe drying out, and then it got a little bit wetter or something like that. So it just looked a bit crazy. But going on to the race, which I have actually watched the highlights of back, so I can sort of actually talk with Tom about it. So let's go on to, well, obviously there's some huge topics, as all of us will know from the race, but we'll sort of, I think, go in the race order maybe at first, like look at the start of the race, then we might go through team by team and look at the huge incidents that happened. So start of the race, a good getaway for Hamilton for once. I mean, Jensen actually got a better starter than him, but then he bogged down because of the torque of the Mercedes, obviously being a lot more dominant. But it was nice for Hamilton, I guess, to have a good start for once compared to the people around him.
Well, last year he got a pretty poor start and got overtaken by Rosberg into turn one, and then Rosberg went on to win the race.
Yeah.
So he was glad to not have Rosberg all over his mirrors. But I agree. I think if Martin actually had a Mercedes under him, I think he genuinely could have had a chance at Hamilton to turn one. But obviously it's a McLaren Honda.
Yeah.
So he still did well. He got past Nico Hulkenberg, who had a pretty poor start. And Nico Hulkenberg overall had a really poor race. He sort of like, Force India just as a whole went nowhere this race. I think a double DNF.
Yeah.
Talk about them later on, but just Hulkenberg dropped through at the start. Raikkonen had a great start, got himself up in a P3 on the Super Softs, which is the tyres that they qualified on, not the Ultra Softs. Both Ferraris and both Red Bulls actually started on the Super Softs because they qualified at their best lap in Q2 with those tyres. And it was obviously Button did well. He managed to stay in P2 for about 7 laps, I think.
Yeah, 7 laps, yeah.
7 laps. And then
7 laps of glory.
people started to cut through JB like a hot knife through butter, and he still started to drop back. To be fair, he did better than what I thought. Didn't drop back as quick as I thought, and you can see he was giving them a good fight, good run for their money, but eventually the ultra softs sort of started to wear out a little bit, and you can see the super softs were coming into their zone a bit, and it was very much a factor in the race. Red Bull, their super softs were sort of just fading away a bit, whereas Ferrari were a bit better on theirs. You can see Raikkonen and Vettel were much better on their super softs than what the Red Bulls were. But the shocking thing was Lewis Hamilton, who stayed out on his ultra softs for like
Yeah, it was mad.
25
Like
laps.
it was crazy.
It was,
Like even Brundle
compared
was.
to Friday,
Yeah,
because they
even
were suffering
Brundle
from
was
severe
on
graining
the
on Friday.
commentary. He was like, "I can't believe he's staying out this long. Like surely he's like losing way too much time here." And that probably obviously the safety car held, but it factored in a little bit to maybe why he ended up behind Nico, just because he was he had track position, but the pace generally wasn't that great towards the end of it. Um, but yeah, that was weird. But yeah,
Speaking of Nico, I was
yeah,
going to say, obviously he started further down. He got himself, I think about P6, P5.
yeah,
And
quite
then,
aggressive on the start. Like straight away in lap
yeah,
one, wasn't it? Right round one of the Red Bulls, I think, into like the last few corners. Like really, like good start from like quite nice and aggressive. Like he needs to make
that was
those
the problem.
passes.
He made the passes very effectively, but the dirty air and just the general extra push of the tyres to try and overtake cars. Obviously, he wore out his ultra softs much quicker than Hamilton, so he pit first. One of the early stops, actually, I think lap 9, I think it was, and he came in for a set of yellow wall soft tyres, which hadn't been run all weekend, yet turned out to be pretty much the best race tyre. And you can see the second Rosberg got on those tyres, and he got out onto the track a little bit clean air. He had to cut through a couple of cars. I think it was a Sauber, a Haas, a couple of cars he had to cut through
Yeah,
on old tyres. But once he got through them cars, he was pumping in sub 1 minute 10 laps, and he was the fastest man on track by a mile. And that showed because when Hamilton pit eventually, it backfired and it didn't really go well for Mercedes. But it sort of planted the seeds for what was to come later on in the race, you could say.
yeah, yeah.
So Mercedes not sticking to the traditional first come, first serve, or first driver who calls for the pit stop pits first.
Yeah, I guess it's difficult if you have that situation where like your number one, your first driver is like trying something a little bit wacky where he's going a lot longer. So it'd be like stupid not to be able to be like, okay, second driver can pit right now. But yeah, that really didn't help it. I felt like the safety car also helped Nico just to neutralize everything because like I felt like Hamilton, even though he was behind him, he could have gone straight on a charge, straight up like that. But the safety car just neutralized a little bit, allowed Nico to kind of compose himself a little bit, get away from him at the restart. But yeah,
Well,
as you
basically,
said, planting the seeds for later.
getting onto that, obviously, most of the ultra soft tyre runners pit, so therefore it was the super soft runners who stayed on track. Red Bulls pit quite early, even though they were super softs, and it's basically Vettel who was the last man standing on the super softs, and he was in the lead. He was basically trying to go. I think Ferrari going for the one stop. I felt.
Yeah,
Vettel,
for sure.
They were trying to hang it out, and on lap 28, I think it was. Rosberg was in second place. He got past Hamilton at this time, and he was hunting down Vettel at a rate of knots. And Vettel was trying to just push that super soft a couple more laps, but on the pit straight,
Boom.
it just went.
That was such a crazy crash.
It just popped.
Yeah.
It went. Vettel kept the engine running, to be fair, but he just couldn't move. He was sort of like lodged there. It's like almost like the car locked the brakes in place, some sort of failure or something, and he just couldn't move. And he just switched off the engine. It triggered a safety car because obviously the car was right in the middle of the racing line into turn one, and that is when it sort of threw the race all up in the air, so to speak. Obviously, a lot of people who were on one stop had to convert to two. People who were on two decided to go to the end. And, it really just sort of threw it all up in the air. And you couldn't really know what was going to happen until all the pit stops had been done by the end of the race. Now, obviously, what this meant is people, for example, like Alonso, who actually had a poor qualifying, they brought themselves right back into play, as did Jenson Button. I felt like the pit stop helped him out a bit because it sort of just neutralised the race a bit, and it sort of helped McLaren get their head back in shape, sort of calm things down a bit, think of a bit of a strategy. And McLaren strapped the softs on Jenson Button, I believe, and he went to the end, if I'm right, I think. So that was actually a really good strategy call from them, as did also, who we're going to in a minute, Pascal Wehrlein and Manor actually put the soft tyres on the Manor car in the safety car phase and took the risk of going to the end, and that really did benefit them massively. Some people decided to not pit at all. I think Nasser didn't pit in the safety car phase. He was on softs, or he started on softs, and he had a massive train of like 6 or 7 cars behind him. So they tried a bit something different, sour, but didn't really work out for them. And overall, it was a case of, right, Rosberg's in the lead. Hamilton's second. How is Hamilton going to get past Rosberg if the driver in front has first call on pit stops? So it was very interesting when you could see Hamilton was sort of like in and out of DRS range the whole time after the safety car period. And Mercedes, you could, after the race, Toto Wolff said they were going for the one-stop strategy. So there wasn't going to be any more stops, but they saw they were marginal on tyres, so they had to pit both of them. And that's where the controversy came into play. They pit Hamilton first, which was awkward because obviously he was in second, Rosberg was in first. But you get the impression because Mercedes sort of felt bad about what happened earlier on in the race and how Rosberg jumped Hamilton, they wanted to give him back the position.
Yeah.
So they pit Hamilton first, and they put him on soft tyres, which was fine. So Hamilton redone the track, and he had a horrible outlap. You can see he made a mistake into turn 3, I think it was. He went literally straight on, and he almost got re-overtaken by Verstappen and Raikkonen, I think it was. But he got his head back in the game, continued the outlap. But by that time, Rosberg coming for his second stop of the race, and he went into super softs. And this is where it sort of sparked the debate, so to speak.
Well, he didn't have any more softs left, really, because they only brought one. So
Hamilton didn't know this. So as far as he was concerned, he was just fuming at the fact that Mercedes had put Rosberg on a better tyre, or a faster tyre, in theory. So Hamilton really did put the work in, and you can see that the super soft didn't really switch on for Rosberg, and Hamilton was on his case the remainder of the race.
it looked like that was the better way to go. Like the soft at the end, like it was like you said before, much better race tyre. But yeah, it was just a kind of I don't know, I don't know if that's the first time, but it's not cropped up too much where the team's tyre choices like that, where they've gone aggressive and gone, oh, we'll only bring one set of this tyre, has really hindered them as much as it had for this race. Because I feel like if Nico was on soft tyres, then if he had a second set, it would have been a lot less marginal right at the end. It wouldn't have gone right down to the last lap.
Well, the super soft thing was what the problem that Rosberg had was similar to Bottas. Bottas was ahead of Button, wasn't he, for P6? But
yeah.
They had to pit him, and he just wasn't fast on the super soft. You could see at the end of the race, Bottas on the super soft, he was being matched by Pascal Wehrlein on 40 old lap softs. So something was wrong. Apparently, I read today something because the whole track got resurfaced or something. It didn't work. It was sort of struggling.
Oh, okay.
But
like a turning on issue.
I think we'll sort of, in a minute, we'll move into like each team individually, but like continue.
Yeah, that'll be a little bit easier.
Yeah. This sort of mixed up strategy mess up by Mercedes sort of led to a pretty fierce battle, I'd say, and it all sort of culminated on the last lap when Hamilton launched the final attack on Rosberg, got ahead in terms of on track. He was just ahead going into turn 3 or turn 2, depending what corner you want. You know, the right hand hairpin. He was ahead on brakes. Rosberg, who apparently, in theory, according to Mercedes, lost the brake by a wire system a corner before. He didn't know about this, so he apparently went in deep into the corner, completely missed the apex. Hamilton turned in right at the last second. There was no more track for Hamilton, so he had to turn in at the last moment. And they basically collided. Rosberg, in my opinion, went straight into the side of Hamilton. Hamilton went off the track. He rejoined just behind Rosberg, and then Rosberg's front wing fell underneath his car.
Yep.
And then he was basically deemed as a dangerous car on track. So he had to go very slowly. There was a bit of debate with the yellow flags, whether Hamilton should have overtaken.
I think it's just in the rules, isn't it, though? Like, if a car's going slow enough, it's deemed as you can just overtake them.
He is the damaged car, so you should be okay to overtake him.
Yeah.
And then also Max Verstappen and Kimi Raikkonen, who were battling it out at the end. Kimi, obviously, on better tyres than Max. Because Red Bull did the one-stop strategy. They stuck it out with Max. They tried to drag him.
Yeah, wasn't it 55 laps or something?
Yeah,
quite a long time.
A lot of laps. Whereas Raikkonen's tyres were like 10 to 12 laps fresher, I think. So Raikkonen had better tyres, and he almost got him. Actually, no, I think Raikkonen's tyres were 5 laps newer, but Raikkonen.
He was right. He was right on his case. He was like a second. Like it ended faster. Across the line. There were literally 3/10 in it.
Raikkonen was a second and a half faster each lap, and he was reading him in. But it just wasn't enough, especially because the yellow flag of Rosberg was sort of like a permanent yellow flag across the rest of the track.
Yeah.
So obviously Raikkonen couldn't get past him, and also that means Rosberg finished at P4 behind Verstappen, who got his second podium of the season, and Raikkonen came home for a disappointing third for Ferrari, considering they were in such good shape at the start of the race. So very bad from Ferrari again. Like we'll get into that in a second, but they just let it slip through their fingers once again. You could say Mercedes, Hamilton takes the win, fairly in my opinion. You know, Rosberg for me is to blame on the incident, and also Red Bull come on with Verstappen in second and Ricciardo in fifth, I believe. So the top three sort of a scrappy order, but you could say the main talking point was obviously the crash. We'll talk about that later on, but I think now moving into team by team order to sort of structure this really a little bit. First of all, Mercedes, you could say Hamilton finally gets his first win at the Red Bull Ring. Rosberg's sort of run comes to an end.
Yeah.
I think Rosberg picks up a pointless penalty in the race. Could have been a bit harsher, but Rosberg for me is to blame on the incident, personally speaking.
Yeah, I've watched it, but obviously I actually read about I like saw a picture of it and read about the incident before I even watched it. So I sort of went in. It wasn't like obviously at the time you guys when you watched it live, it would have been a shock when it happened. When I watched it, I already seen a picture of it, so it was like, okay, that looks a bit weird and dodgy. Yeah, I honestly think it's just Rosberg at the end of the race getting a bit too like, oh god, I'm gonna lose the win. I'm gonna lose the win. I need to do something here. Let me try and be like Mr. Not Nice Guy and like go straight as I can before turning. And then Lewis was just like, nope, the corner's there. I'm going to turn now. And then he came off worse. Rosberg came off worse because his front wing got damaged on the left-hand side. And then I think the second half was a little bit of a, like some people were trying to find issue with the second half of the whole crash. Like, when Hamilton was on the grass coming back.
I found it quite dangerous, personally. I thought that could have, that literally, it could have been like
It could have been quite bad.
Clipped his rear and then they both went off.
It could have been very bad, but at the same time, I also feel like probably Rosberg wasn't even looking in his mirrors, which is pretty poor from him. But I think I don't think it was a case of. I think I saw some people trying to speculate that he was intentionally going really hard on the left to stop Hamilton coming back in front of him. But I think it was just the fact he wasn't really looking. He was just worried about, oh god, have I got like damage in my front wing?
His front wing had just gone under his car.
Yeah, and then literally as soon as Hamilton got back on track, that was the point when it literally went completely under, and then it started sparking away. So, but the first part, yeah, I don't even buy the Mercedes excuse with the the brake thing. Yeah, I think he honestly just really overcooked it, and then was like, okay, I need to do something here, otherwise I'm going to definitely lose this win. I'll just stick it in deep, and then yeah, so. I like a lot of people are saying it's wish-washy. I really think it's more black and white than people are saying.
I can see the argument about how Hamilton turned into him, but at the end of the day, let's be real here. I do not like Lewis Hamilton, but if you think he's to blame for that, then you have no clue about Formula One. Like you said, it's very black and white. I think Rosberg knew what he was doing, and I think his penalty was not really harsh enough. But I think. In terms of Mercedes, there's not really a lot to say. I just think it's one of them ones where...
Well, it could have been a great race for them. That's the thing to say. It could have been a great race for them. And again, just...
But Toto Wolff also said it could have been a double DNF. So...
Okay, yeah,
first
true.
And fourth, that's the best...
It was good that one guy came through to win still.
At the end of the day, if you look at Mercedes, I felt like they just got it all wrong the entire race. Like I said, from the first pit stop where... They pit Rosberg first, he came out ahead of Hamilton, and then they pit Hamilton first, like when Rosberg was in the lead, to try and make it up for him, so to speak, and then the crash, it was all just... And then, because of this, now the backlash is Mercedes, I think, are imposing team orders on the two, which I can see why. Whenever there's been a battle, with the exception of maybe Bahrain 2014, it's always ended in tears, so
yeah,
I can understand their logic behind it. Obviously, I don't think any of us are a fan of team orders, and we don't want it to happen. But if it has to happen, it has to happen. So we have to bite the bullet on that one. But yeah, that's Mercedes. I don't really have much more to add. It's just a case of scruffy strategy.
Almost just typical Mercedes race, really. Honestly, a lot of the time, like a few little strategy hiccups or weird calls here and there. Good pace all round. It's clearly still the fastest car by a mile, and then at the end it ends in tears.
I agree. Now, second team,
Red
on merit, because Verstappen sort of went under the radar. Ricciardo went on a 2-stop, whereas Verstappen went on a 1-stop. Ricciardo just couldn't make his tyres last, apparently. I think it was, what's his name? Helmut Marko said Ricciardo just couldn't make his tyres last. Verstappen just managed to get the tyres to last, and they showed like a slow-mo, like 5 laps from the end. And Verstappen's soft looked perfect. Like, they looked in very good shape. To say he did like 50-plus laps on them, so... Verstappen did a very good job with his tyres, and obviously came through for his second podium of the season, and fantastic from him. I mean, he just went sort of under the radar, and with the Mercedes crash and everything, he came in second place. So great result for him, and just on his tail was Kimi Raikkonen. But Ricciardo this weekend, he out-qualified his teammate. It was all good, but in Sunday, he just didn't have the pace on Verstappen.
He got overtaken by Vettel quite early on, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Apparently, he said he had a problem or something.
Right.
He noticed. When you come out of the second sector, you got like the left hand where the second sector is, and
yeah.
hander. When you got that hill, he said he could just feel there's no power in the car or something, and like the cars were getting past him before the next corner.
Yeah,
So
well, Vettel overtook him like before the last
exactly.
little section, which was odd because usually you do it in the last section. So
So
yeah,
they felt there's some sort of problem there or something. I don't know, but yeah, still a decent race from Red Bull, second and fifth. I think they'll be happy with that, especially the fact Red Bull didn't get any points, so that's more to gain for them than constructors. But yeah, great job from Verstappen, P2, fantastic from him.
yeah, great from him, especially at the Red Bull ring for him
Exactly,
for
the
him
first
to
podium.
do that. That's
Yeah.
quite a good accomplishment for him to bring it home. And as he said, just quiet race, but he was there, like it's a case of point like you just do your own race and you never know what might happen ahead of him. So I guess he was probably bloody elated when he saw like a Rosberg going real slow in sector 2. So yeah, really
Very
solid.
disappointing, like for Ferrari though, in terms of it was one of those tracks. It was very much a case of Ferrari were going to challenge for the win. They were, they were day and night clear ahead of Red Bull and Williams. Yet Red Bull still beat both of their cars, right? Or one of their cars beat. If you know
Yeah,
what I mean,
yeah,
like
yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah,
Verstappen
yeah,
beat
yeah,
Raikkonen, and in theory they both beat Vettel. So they've
yeah.
sort of basically beaten both of them. So yeah, interesting. Red Bull sort of just come out of nowhere because I mean they had no pace in Friday practice or race runs, but they sort of just on the soft the car just worked, especially for Verstappen. So good job from Red Bull there. Then Ferrari, which obviously the team that I support, another strategy just blunder really. I mean. Brundle's saying during the race that they've got to pit Raikkonen, they've got to pit him because he's going to get undercut by all these people. And at first, I disagreed because he was like, no, let Ferrari stick to their one stop. They're going for the one stop with Kimi. I thought he pit a bit early, Kimi, to be fair. I thought they were going to do the same thing with Vettel, with Kimi.
Right.
That's what I thought. So I thought, nah, it's all right. Keep him out, because if they're going for the one stop, it could work for them. Obviously, little did we know that they would pick Kimi early for a start and come out behind the two Mercedes and two Red Bulls. But secondly, little did we know there would be a safety car, and that would pretty much almost allow people to go to the end of the race. So, just terrible strategy. Kimi had all right pace, okay pace. Um, he almost got second at the end, which would have sort of made up for a pretty poor race, in my opinion, if he'd just overtaken Verstappen. But in terms of Vettel, I could see the strategy working. I think if the tire had not popped, then he would have pit at the end of that lap and then come in for the softs. Obviously, we wouldn't have ever had the safety car, so
Yeah.
he would have been on a one stop, and the soft seemed like a decent race tire.
Yeah, and
So
then that also wouldn't have affected Kimi as much as well. So
exactly. So
yeah,
once
big
again, I think
big
Ferrari
if.
unlucky. Unlucky Ferrari. You got to say, they've had not much luck in the season as a team. There's always one car that has a problem. So
Yeah,
that's why
I
third
think
zero of the season.
I've been getting comments for like why is Ferrari so unlucky in my career mode? It's coming true in real life. Like they're getting so much
Yeah,
bad luck here and there, and that was like yeah, just yeah, on his birthday as well. Like that was such a
yeah, true.
that
Yeah,
must be so frustrating for Sebastian. Like that's really gutting. And like there was this one photo where he was out of the car and walking down the hill, and you could
and he's
just
got
see Raikkonen
Mercedes.
go past, and it was like, oh well, that's just
Yeah. It,
yeah,
Ferrari unlucky. I've got to say, like strategy debacle and just car performance aside, if they just not pick like Vettel's got 3 zeros this season. If he had not had 3 zeros, if you look at the championship, he's only like 50 points behind the Mercedes. It's like
yeah,
if he
yeah.
just picked up like 10, 10, 10 points in all three of those races, it could have been a different story. So very unlucky Ferrari. I've got to say, they really need to just have a bit of a break. I think have a bit more luck. At the same time as I say that, I think today they've said they shifted attention to next year now. They've started to move attention to
Right,
next year's
okay,
car and also 2018. I've read.
okay,
So
right.
they're planning like a big push for that year. So I've read from Motorsport they really want to challenge in 2018 because by then the engine regulations are open. They're already working on 2018's engine because obviously it's got to last 3 races by itself
Yeah,
by
yeah, yeah.
2018, and also on the performance side of things. So Ferrari doing very much what Mercedes did when the V6s were announced, getting in the door early, working on their engine nice and early. So that'll be interesting to see in terms of the remainder of the season. I can't see Ferrari winning a race. I still think they can win a race. They just need to, similar to like Singapore and Hungary, they need to be in the right place at the right time. It's like this weekend, the Mercedes collided, but it wasn't Ferrari there. It was Red Bull who were there to pick up the scraps.
Yeah,
With
they've done that.
Verstappen in
Yeah,
second place.
they've done that a few
So
times. Yeah.
same as Spain. So Ferrari really need to get that together because you can see anywhere else they're pretty much faster than Red Bull. It just happens to be whenever Mercedes ever crash, it's actually Red Bull pick up the scraps somehow. So very unfortunate for Ferrari. They need to pick their act together. Then moving down further down the order, off the top of my head that I can remember,
Um.
Jenson Button,
Yeah.
fantastic
Well.
result from him. Really, really good drive. You can see he just managed it perfectly. I think the safety car helped him a bit because I think they had a bit of tyre wear with McLaren. but he literally carried out a plan to a T. Sixth place was probably the best he could have hoped for.
Yeah,
So
agreed. Yeah, I think it was really good that
right,
they genuinely had better pace than likes of Williams, Toro Rosso, Force India today. Obviously, Force India dropped back because of a lot of issues and DNF'd at the end, but still. But to be ahead of Williams on pace at the end, that's just brilliant. I think honestly, that's a really good step forward. I think they've said this morning that Honda have said the biggest test will be Silverstone next this coming weekend. Like it was a good step forward for the ERS deployment, but the biggest test will be Silverstone now. So we'll have to see about that. And also, Alonso retired in the end on the other side of the garage, so
yeah.
they had some fears about it, so they wanted to save it. But yeah, really good that they were ahead of Williams on pace. Like that sentence alone is just genuinely something that didn't expect to really say that weekend. Really, considering Austria's a power track.
Well, not just Williams. I mean, Force India as well. Haas. They're on paper they were the full fastest team.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And then moving down below Jensen was another great back into the points for Haas. Romain Grosjean, seventh place. Really nice to see him finally getting back in there after we've slagged them off a little bit, saying they've sort of dropped back into reality a little bit. But as
their strategy was perfect. They literally in Australia where they pit under the safety car.
Yeah.
So they basically essentially did not stop at all at race. They did a pit stop under the safety car, and that's it. They went for the one stop strategy. Grosjean started on super softs, I believe. Dragged them out until the safety car came out, and then strapped on a set of softs, went to the end, job done. P7 he couldn't get past Button. He was always like within a second and a half of him.
Yeah, he ended up like he ended up 7 seconds behind him at the end of the race. Yeah, quite close.
Couldn't match the Mclaren in the day. So yeah, good job for both of them, both Grosjean and Button. I think Gutierrez came home in 11th place.
Yeah, 11th place. Yeah,
he's been doing. To be fair, got to tip my hat to Gutierrez recently. He's been battling through apparently a really severe virus and illness apparently the last 3 races or so. So really good job. Apparently after Baku, which was literally I think it was like what was it 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago? I don't know. I think 2 weeks.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Literally straight after Baku, flew back out to Mexico to try and have some specialist checks done or something.
All right, okay.
And then he flew back out to Austria. Apparently he's been really ill, so he's done well to fight through those races and just miss out on a couple of points. His first points of the season, which would have been, I believe. So unfortunate for him. Also moving down, who finished in 9th? Was it?
It was 8th Carlos Sainz and Toro Rosso. Then 9th was Bottas. So Sainz, Toro Rosso. I think it's great job. And the fact that Kvyat has had another terrible weekend. Just his career's over, surely, isn't it?
I mean, once again, he's unlucky. I mean,
but
crash on Saturday.
Yeah, it wasn't his fault.
It was the other end, like the other side of the car, which you don't expect to get loose, the right rear suspension, and then also on Sunday itself, his car just broke down. I mean, there's not much you can do about that really. It's just he's got a lot.
Yeah, I know you can't do much about that, but I think just as a genuine
vibe you're getting.
Yeah, that vibe of things are just not going his way, and he's not even getting a chance to prove himself. So it's almost like he'll just get kicked out because it seems harsh. He hasn't had a chance to prove himself, but he hasn't. So it's like
incredible.
I just don't know.
He had a podium this season.
Yeah, in a way, yeah, that is. Really so and Sainz doing a brilliant job with that Toros to get 4 points there for them, and they weren't actually too far. They're actually only 3 seconds behind Grosjean. So give it like.
Toro Rosso was slowest in the speed traps, I believe, or Sainz was, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. Well, once again, showing that older engine.
Yeah. To get 8 from 16th, similar to what was it, where he finished 9th and started 20th. Canada.
Yeah.
20th, finished 9th.
Yeah.
Great
just
job
like
from Sainz, really recovering well on that old power unit. Really sort of quietly going under the radar as a bit of a shining star. You can really see.
I think he's doing work in Toro
Rosso. Yeah, doing well with it. So fair play to him. And obviously Bottas, Williams saying he struggled with the super soft. Massa retired. Just a very meh race from Williams. Just nothing. They had new front wing on Massa's car. It didn't really work out for them. Just a poor race from Williams. But crucially, the other star of the show, in P10, Pascal Wehrlein.
Manor get points.
First points of the season, which I think we all predicted at the start of the season in the preseason podcast.
Yeah, that they would get it.
So
I think we all said they were going to get it somewhere. But
fantastic.
Great job.
The last two races at Baku, you could see, at least in qualifying, they looked so close to getting out Q1, and in the race it sort of faded away a bit, especially because of the brake failure on Wehrlein's car. But this weekend at Austria, you can see through practice, in qualifying, I mean, in Q2, I think it was, Vernon was 1/10 away from making Q3 on super softs. He qualified on super softs. He was only 1/10 away from
Solid.
getting Q3. So
Yeah.
had he maybe strapped on a set of ultra softs, he could have made it, but the rain came down, so he was a bit unlucky there. But still, P12, which turned out to be P11 in the race because Massa got back of the grid pit lane start. And also, speaking of that, actually, at the start of the race,
He almost fucked it up.
first on the grid,
Almost fucked it up.
unbelievable. Like
That
he's-
was
yeah, that was
hilarious.
A great save. I've got to say,
Yeah.
I'm surprised he managed to find reverse, get it back in the grid start in time, and then get
That was
the
quite
light
funny.
point for the engine right, for the lights to come on and do his race. Great stuff from him. Really good race. Really impressive race. I mean, if you look at Haryanto on the other hand, I know Verlan's had experience at the Red Bull Ring before with DTM, but he completely just put Haryanto into the shade this weekend. You can see, and he had great pace all weekend. To be fair to him, I think he had the 10th fastest lap of the weekend in the race. So like where he finished, pretty much, Manor were mid-table. They were better than Sauber. Great result. Fantastic from them.
Yeah,
great stuff.
awesome. Like that's genuinely like we said pre-season. Like it would be like awesome for them to get a whole lot of points. They'll get it at some point. Then a few unlucky times we've said like where it looked like they were pretty good, like in qualifying, like they got out, and and in the race you said they fell back. But this weekend, as you said, throughout the entire practice, it just felt like it was building up to them doing that.
I can say because he obviously didn't watch qualifying. Verlan said after qualifying, when he qualified in P12, he said, it's the first time all season they've been able to get the tyres up to temperature in qualifying. So therefore, because they've got them in the temperature zone, one, they don't wear as much, which is what they've been struggling with all season with tyre wear, and also they're up to temperature, so they're in the perfect range. Good lapping. So maybe the man of cars isn't that bad. It's just a case of they've really not been getting the tyres switched on at all season.
Yeah, and we've seen in like Singapore last year for Mercedes, it is a very crucial part of the car to get it working with the tyres. So moving down the order, obviously we said Gutierrez was.
Say before we get off Manor, it makes you wonder. Surely a track like Monza, it could be in good shape, or maybe Spa.
Well, yeah, there's been like
tracks,
other drivers have said like the man is a rocket ship in a straight line. So you got to hope that in Italy they could be very very strong actually.
Even Silverstone, if they can get a bit of downforce down, pretty fast track with some decent straights. Silverstone, they could be a bit of a wild card. So great stuff from them. Good to see them. Getting points.
It's nice. Very, very nice. I think everyone can agree.
By the start of 2015, that was dust, that team. They've just pulled out the bag, so great stuff from them.
Yeah. So moving down. So we said Gutierrez was 11th already. Palmer 12th and Magnussen 14th. So like we said with Sauber as well, 13th and 15th. So they're basically intertwined with each other. Renault and Sauber just a very quiet weekend. I saw the Renaults fighting a little bit at the first stint, along with Verline in the middle sector, like on lap 1, and then they sort of just faded away. Whereas Verline actually managed to keep up with a few people. I do feel for Renault, especially for someone like Magnussen. Just because we know he's a fast driver, and he's just stuck in his.
Palmer, to be honest, because you got to feel Palmer's not going to be in that seat anymore next season, and he just isn't going to have the car for the rest of the season to prove himself because they've openly said they're not going to develop that car anymore. That's rotten if you're Jolyon Palmer.
Yeah, true as well. Yeah.
So whereas Magnussen, he knows he's there next season, so it's not really. It's just a case of get the season over and done with because I want to move on to the next.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But I was going to say quickly. Yeah, now you said that. I think Verlan was last and a lap down at one point, but it just goes to show that he had that good pace that he could bring himself back into the race after the safety car. So it just shows around a track where there's a bit of power, Renault and Sauber just can't even match Manor, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, and then we got Haryanto 16th, and then as we mentioned, Force India, really unfortunate weekend for them, especially after Hulkenberg's such a great qualifying. I bet they were really, really pumped up on Saturday night, and then they end up the weekend with 2 DNF. Sergio Perez 17th, Hulkenberg 19th, retiring quite late on, Hulkenberg, but a bit annoying. Obviously, also contrasting what happened in Baku as well. That's even more kind of like gutting for them, just to be like, 2 DNFs now, great. So, but I'm sure they'll bounce back. They genuinely go okay at Silverstone usually. Like they can get up there in the fight in a good midfield scrap for the last few points. So I think they'll bounce back. No worries. I mean, Force India, unlike someone like Renault or Sauber or Haas, we already know they're a well-established team, so I'm sure they'll bounce back. And then obviously we said Alonso retired, so that was pretty much everyone running through. But yeah, I don't know if you want to talk one last bit on just any on the bigger points of the race. Again, we've said the whole stuff with Rosberg and Hamilton. And going into maybe the British Grand Prix, talking about that incident, flowing into that one. talking about the whole team order thing, what's going to happen now. Obviously, the fact that the race is literally next weekend is sort of worse for them because it's less time to dissipate everything. Maybe the emotions will still be there. And it doesn't help when Lauda is kind of going out and just saying random shit about both drivers.
Yeah, well, it's just I'm getting that bad vibe from Mercedes at the moment because Hamilton said, I think it was at the start of last week, he said like, "Oh, our relationship, me and Rosberg, is never been better. We're in a really good place right now." Yet it came out today that or yesterday that Hamilton smashed up his like room in Baku, you know, like where they chill out sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
the private room after qualifying, he smashed his room up or something. And then you look at the crash at Austria, you just think Mercedes on a bit of a bad vibe. Like Lauda said today as well. He said Hamilton lied about the Rosberg Hamilton relationship improving and all that. So just feel like in Mercedes overall, there's just a bit of a.
It's a weird one. It's a weird one. It's like
Yeah.
they're really trying their best to make sure the PR is still all good. Because obviously, results and everything are all well and good, but they also need to make sure that all their sponsors are all in a
Yeah.
nice light, with the team being all like positive and good vibes and stuff.
I don't believe in the whole rivalry between Hamilton and Rosberg. I think it's a rubbish rivalry. But to sort of like paint a picture and like get an image of what's happening at Mercedes right now, you know when you stick like a magnet on the fridge and the magnet wears off and it sort of slips down a bit slowly off down the fridge, and you try and push it back in so it sticks in place. You just feel Mercedes all like it's just slipping a bit. The relationship in the team,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
they're trying
yeah.
to stick it together, but it just keeps going and going. And I just feel like something's going to happen, like especially at Silverstone. You feel like Rosberg, he might just go like a full-on villain or bad guy, like a kryptonite, and just really, if he gets the chance, he's going to shove Hamilton off the track or something. You got to feel.
Yeah, be quite a bad play, bad circuit to do it on.
Well, I think that's part of the reason. I think
Yeah,
why
yeah,
it's
true,
Hamilton's
true.
home fans.
Hit him hard where he's
Yeah,
where on his home soil. So yeah, that's going to be a tricky one. But yeah, as we're sort of fluidly moving into Silverstone, so it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, being in the UK, there's always a chance of rain. You never know. Even if it says it's not going to rain, it could rain any point really. So that's going to be a factor. In terms of the circuit, obviously Tom said high speed circuit. Downforce are needed, but you also need plenty of power. In terms of looking, we already said like Mercedes is going to be strong. We already know that, so that's going to be more of a driver thing. In terms of other cars, Red Bull, I think they should go pretty well here. To be honest, I think they should go really
yeah,
well.
yeah.
I think honestly, it might be a case of where Ferrari might be a little bit worried, perhaps a little bit.
I can
Maybe
see
their
that happening.
pace.
Yeah, I can see that happening because Red Bull by default are good around corners. However, their straight line speed and their power unit isn't too shabby now either. So it will go all right, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, and in terms
I
of
agree with you.
Ferrari, um, as you said, like it's tricky because it's bad luck. So there's not it's not like, oh, we need to improve here. Is a sense like obviously the strategy was maybe a little bit iffy on Kimi, but apart from that, it was really just bad luck, and you can't really improve upon. You can't like do anything to do that. So I guess it's sort of like a just I don't know, like the opposite of Mercedes slipping away with the relationship. I guess it's more of a case of all right, let's keep going, keep your heads down, don't get too disheartened by the bad luck, and just
I
keep
mean,
going again.
if you look at them since Canada, they definitely look a bit better. I mean, even at Baku, they look nowhere in qualifying, but in the race, they still got second and fourth, almost third because Raikkonen had the penalty. But you can see in the race they bounced right back, so the race pace is still decent. I thought like in the race at Austria they could have done a bit better, but it's one of them ones where I don't get my hopes up too much for Ferrari now. I'll see it when I believe it very much because at
Yeah,
the moment on
yeah, yeah.
paper it's looking like they'll probably be the third best team behind Red Bull and Mercedes.
Yeah. So moving down a little bit from the kind of top three, I guess you could say. I would expect Williams to improve a little bit, but probably might be another bit of a wish-washy one for them. It'll be interesting to see who actually has that place behind those top three, because obviously
Yeah.
Austria, it was JB, Grosjean, Sainz, Bottas, Manor. Don't know. It could be quite, I think behind those three, which is quite predictable in terms of those three always being there, could be quite because obviously as we said, Force India should be right up there once again. Could be quite a good chance for Perez and Hülkenberg to get some good points. We'll see how McLaren do. They say it's a very crucial one, so we'll see how it goes and see how their ERS holds up about that. But I think it could be a really good scrap behind them, like just for those last
Yeah, it's
points.
definitely got a good feel to it. I think there's lots of names. I mean, Haas could still be in there with a shout because I mean they got points last time out. If McLaren can hold their own through the corners, Manor could they throw in a wild card possibly?
Yeah, if they're good, if they're like as you said, if they're decent enough through the corners, and then they just let the power unit carry them through the straights, they could be, And also, if there is rain, if it's another race like last year where it was very iffy, like it was all down to drivers basically using their skills to kind of skid around the circuit. Like we saw at Luffield, like every single lap, drivers opposite lock. It was all about driver skill trying to get the car through the circuit. So if it's another
Sorry,
qualifying or race like that.
out the window.
Yeah, it's yeah, then all the predictions could be really out there, and it could be like anyone's could kind of get. So
Fun
yeah,
for pole position then
yeah, yeah.
after Austria. Got to try and one up himself, get pole position. I would generally like. I would like to see Rain and hope Martin gets a podium, which he's never had a podium in the British Grand Prix. That'd be nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be very, very wishful, but yeah, I mean, we see it. Where was it? It was 2014 only, wasn't it? That where he got like fifth, and then I think it was fifth. Was it? I can't remember.
Fourth. He finished fourth in 2014.
Yeah, yeah, he finished fourth, but in the qualifying he finished third, didn't he? Again,
Yeah,
I think it was
one of
third.
them ones. I think
Yeah,
it was
he likes
Mercedes and
third
McLaren.
place in
It was
that
those two.
he likes
It was
third
those
in that
two
new
going at it,
McLaren
yeah.
era.
It was those two going at it. I think Mercedes and McLaren on that day. And I think Magnussen or Barton, one of them got like the lead of the race or something. I think at the start, didn't they? Or they got second place. And
I can't remember. I can't. 2 years ago, I can't even remember.
but
Bad
yeah, I
memory.
remember it was Mercedes and McLaren scrapping it out, and Button just held out for P4. But yeah, I'd love to see, especially with that race. I remember that was the race where JB debuted his pink for Papa helmet and all that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It would have been nice. So yeah, I'd love to see JB get a podium. I think that sixth place has sort of helped him out a bit because obviously there's a lot of question
Speculation.
marks surrounding his future.
Yeah.
As same with Felipe Massa, who maybe we'll talk about in a future podcast. But yeah, with JB, I think that sixth place is just a nice feel-good moment because if the McLaren can consistently provide those results for the rest of the season, sort of there or thereabouts, he'll sort of enjoy his racing more, which is what he's looking for.
Yeah, yeah, just
and
enjoying
maybe
it.
he'll stay at McLaren. So
Yeah.
yeah, fingers crossed, holding out for JB. Hopefully, I'd like him to stay around in F1. So especially McLaren, because I don't feel like Williams is going anywhere. So yeah, I'd like to see him stay.
Yeah, so it could be very interesting if there is some rain. Hopefully, he can capitalise. But that's the same for a lot of the drivers, really. I think if it rains, Red Bull could be within a shout with some good downforce there to maybe
Last year.
yeah, maybe even snag they could surprisingly snag a pole if it is like raining and it is a very tricky situation, perhaps.
Yeah, I think
So yeah, I think it's maybe not the best analysis, but I think it's very much a very up in the air Grand Prix for next weekend. We said that a lot for the British Grand Prix because there's just that rain factor, but it is just up in the air because I think everything that happened in this race in Austria, the fact it was so wish-washy in Austria, it's come at a very good time where this next race could be equally just as good one.
And let's just not forget, I think this is this the first time we're using hards all season? Did we even use them at Spain? Did we?
I don't.
We
Yeah,
just
I don't,
ourselves to Spain, I
yeah. I
think.
don't think we've actually even used the hards once.
So obviously with the free tire compound rule,
Yeah, it's gonna make that very interesting
it's,
again.
it's another track where we're going in with the unknown because
Yeah.
obviously Austria, I know I was saying that, I almost forgot. Austria's been one of them tracks in the V6 area where the racing has been dull. So it was the first time we've had the free tire compound magic work
Yeah, yeah.
yet again like the rest of the season, and you can see it just made it a great Grand Prix. So Silverstone, yet another proper traditional gritty racing track. You got to feel the extra compound's going to make a difference once again.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, apart from that, like, I don't think we can really talk too much else about it. But okay, in terms of like predictions, who do you think is gonna come out on the race day? Who do you think? Just a feeling.
I think if we're just going to like get off Cloud 9 for a second and be realistic,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you've got to think, I can't look past Hamilton, especially
Yeah.
after what happened in Austria. He's going to be riding that wave of momentum.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it might be, as much as I like to dream about, oh yeah, maybe that we'd have a Red Bull Mercedes fight, all this rain and stuff. Realistically, I think like if it's a pretty okay normal race, nothing major, like Tom suggested with controversy with Rosberg, nothing happens. I think it could just be a grand slam for Hamilton, just smash pole, smash the win, and have the standard, just I don't know, just the standard British Grand Prix, really.
Yep. Oh, I can definitely see that.
Just
I
the
think
standard kind of patriotism going on. I think he'll just smash it that weekend, just because it seems like like plenty of drivers have their home Grand Prix and they all talk about having energy, but having gone to the British Grand Prix twice and seeing Hamilton bag pole in what was it 2013, and also I went last year as well, and he came through. It just there's that like. I'm sure other tracks have it, but like personally, I've just witnessed how much electric energy there is for him around that track, And I just think, realistically, I think it's a very good chance for him just to smash
Well,
everything and just get it.
he got booed, didn't he, on the podium of Austria? So
I think, yeah, but that was
that came out of nowhere though.
that was a thing though. I read that apparently on the track they didn't show a replay on the screens about what happened, and the commentators on track, like the local track commentator, said it was Hamilton's fault turning in, and so that's why they booed. Apparently, I don't think they actually knew what fully happened properly.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably more it. And if it wasn't, I think that's just totally unjustified because obviously we've clearly seen after all the analysis that I really don't think there's any way you can spin that was Hamilton's fault, unless you want to go the route you went, Tom, with the Photoshop and say haters will say it's photoshopped. But
yeah, go check out that tweet. Okay.
I'll put it on screen right now.
It's totally legit.
Yeah, that is definitely turn 3. All right.
Right. If you can't understand that picture and see how it's Hamilton's fault, then you're blind. It's 100% Hamilton's fault in that picture.
So, yeah, I think that's where we'll wrap it up. I don't think we need to waffle on for too much longer. So, guys, if you have enjoyed it, hit that like button. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. Again, I do apologize that it was midweek, but, I had a lot of people in the comments of the video I put yesterday. My driver were, asking when the podcast was. I say it again, the easiest way to know when a video goes out is just follow us on Twitter, especially me. I tweeted out about 10 million times over the weekend that the podcast wouldn't come out on a Sunday, so that's the best chance to know. But I know, I know it's frustrating not to have it on the Sunday because you guys are, buzzing from the race and you want to see a discussion and stuff like that. But trust me, it probably hurts us more than it hurts you guys not seeing it because this podcast will actually get probably a third of the views it would do if it was out on a Sunday. So trust me, it probably hurts us more than you guys that we had to put it out this late. But at least we got it out in the end and we got a bit of discussion about it.
It's more than that. It's just the fact of the race was so good.
Yeah, plus that. I missed the freaking race.
I wanted to talk about it with someone, but I had no one to talk to.
I missed the freaking race. Tom tweeted out, I was at FE and Cal was on holiday, and Tom just sat there great. And I was there at FE going, I've missed a fucking amazing race, a great qualifying. Fuck's sake.
Just quickly, just touching that. I think, speaking of Callum, he's still on holiday. I don't think he's going to be back for the next one either at Silverstone. I think he might. I think there's a 2-week break, isn't it, after Silverstone? So
yes.
He might be back for the one.
No, there's a 1 week break.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there's only 1 week. So he might be back for for the useless podcast, in the middle of the week.
Yeah, I think so.
And then he might be going away again. So,
me and Aaron quite a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if we can, I don't know. We'll see how it goes for over Silverstone and the next one. I might try and see if I can get Justin back in because you guys really enjoyed when he was in on the podcast. So I don't know because obviously he's in a different time zone completely to me and Tom. So I'll have to see if he's actually around and awake after a Grand Prix. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it probably will definitely just be me and Tom. Maybe Justin at some point. We'll try and get him. I'll see if I can swoon him over. I think that's the word, over to the podcast. But yeah, anyway, guys, if you have enjoyed it, again, hit that like button. Let us know what you thought. If you're around here, do subscribe to this channel for the podcast. Subscribe to Tom if you enjoyed what he said, and follow us all on Twitter. Links as Tom's just doing right now, and I'm doing above our heads. But that's been the Pitlane podcast, episode number 19. Next one's gonna be the big 20. So I can't believe we're all in 20. So that's crazy. So yeah, been a great time. Good chat, Tom, and we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.